Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a weekly television show called Team Chicago Challenge. My website is teamchicago.tv, teamchicago.tv. We're in St. Anne, Missouri, which is just northwest of downtown St. Louis, Missouri. We're at Donelson Cycle, and in the next 10 or 12 minutes, I'm going to talk to some of the racers from the 70s, the flat track scene from the 1970s into the 80s, when I got involved with motorcycle racing. So we're here to celebrate Neal's birthday. A whole bunch of old racers. Some of the ex-#1 Dick Mann is here, and Randy Goss is here, and I had a chance to talk to Randy Goss. So we're going to show that footage, and remember my website. That's teamchicago.tv, teamchicago.tv. But before I get to my interview with Randy Goss, two-time Grand National Champion, winner of 16 Nationals, we're going to go back to 1983, Hawthorne Park. Hawthorne is a racetrack located approximately 10 miles south of where I live in Chicago. 1983, Randy Goss was battling for the championship with Ricky Graham. This racetrack was one of the stops on the national circuit. So let's turn it over to Jan Gabriel and Gene Romero with the SuperChargers 1983.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the SuperChargers. This afternoon, it's fast action motorcycles, AMA style, and the very best in the United States are here. I'm J.C. Gabriel, along with former national #1 Gene Romero, and also joining us will be Linda Marshall. And Gene, indeed, the very best are here.
Well, that's a fact. We have Jay Springsteen, Randy Goss, Bubba Schobert, Mike Kidd, Terry Poovey, Steve Moorhead. We got and Ricky Graham, the Grand National Champion. It's going to be one great race today.
In total, there are 100 motorcycles here. They're now qualifying. There will be 48 riders that make the program, and they'll whittle those down to the final 17 that will go into the national final, and that's worth big money.
Boy, that's correct, and it's going to be 25 laps on a different mile racetrack than what we're accustomed to, because at this particular race circuit, the straightaways are real long and the corners are very tight, and it's going to be real demanding on the riders and the equipment.
And the speeds should be exceptional here today.
Yes, we expect with straightaways like this, excess of 130 miles an hour.
Should be exciting. The air-conditioned grandstands here at Hawthorne Park, a thoroughbred racetrack just outside of Chicago, are literally packed with fans who've come to see these powerful 750cc motorcycles on the big mile. It'll be a 25-lap AMA Grand National Championship. Ricky Graham and 16 other colorful riders are qualified and on the line, ready for this 25-lap challenge on the mile. The field includes 20-year-old Jim Felice from Modesto, California. He has won one national. From Stockton, California, it's Alex Jorgensen, an 8-year veteran. Randy Goss is next. He's a former national champion and today's fast qualifier. Then the defending national champion, Ricky Graham from Seaside, California, with 6 career national wins. Next, 27-year-old Steve Moorhead. Then Gary Scott, another former national champion. At 31, he is the oldest rider in the field today. He'll be starting alongside of his brother Hank Scott from Findlay, Ohio, on a Honda. Number 23 is Alabama rider Lance Jones. National number 12 is Ted Booty, who has 4 career national wins. With a record of 38 national wins, there's Jay Springsteen, a 3-time national champion. One of Springsteen's teammates is 21-year-old Scotty Parker. He turned pro at age 17. Out of Tulare, California, Steve Monger, a 3-year expert. 24-year-old Garth Brow transferred to this final by winning his semi earlier today. Out of Boyd, Texas, Honda factory rider Mike Kidd. He's won 12 nationals. Number 99 is Dan Ingram from Claremont, Indiana. And finally, California rider Keith Day, and out of South Dakota, Jay Beach. And they're ready to make thunder.
Jimmy Felice in the lead. He got a perfect start.
Jorgensen tucks in on the inside. Jorgensen drops back to third now to Jimmy Felice, who takes him off of turn number 2 and heads him down the back straightaway. Felice, your leader. They string out now.
He's getting an outstanding breakaway right now as far as the lead on a mile. He has about a 2.5 bike lead right now.
One of the concerns, of course, is tire wear here today.
Yes, this racetrack right now, the way it is, it's very abrasive, and they got to keep that in mind, because you have to have traction throughout the race and not wear out your tire too early.
All right, 20-year-old Jim Felice leads the first lap now. Randy Goss slides the machine down into turn number 1 as he and the rest of the field drop off the pace, and Felice has got a rocket in that machine.
Yes, as you can see right now, Randy Goss is right up there, and he's really pressing hard. But this outstanding lead that Jimmy Felice has there, that's unbelievable for a mile race.
All right, what's his advantage?
Well, he is so light. He is so light a rider, and with the horsepower he's got a power to weight ratio over the field. And the way this racetrack is right now, it's similar to a road race, and he's an excellent road racer. In a terrific race. He's not doing anything. He's not letting the people intimidate him. He's riding his own race. He's, in fact, it looks like he's only riding about 90% right now. He's just riding nice and smooth and calm.
All right, here's that battle for second as it continues between Randy Goss and Ted Booty.
You have another race taking place also for the 4th and 5th position with Alex Jorgensen and Hank Scott in 5th position. His brother, Gary Scott, is in 6th.
They continue to thunder around the Hawthorne Mile. We're in Cicero, Illinois.
Jimmy Felice went and got sideways coming out of turn 4, and he broke traction, and now Randy Goss just passed him, and so did Booty.
Oh, they did indeed, and now we have a new leader, Randy Goss out of Heartland, Michigan.
Okay, now coming off of turn 2 here, you're going to watch Jimmy Felice hopefully draft the rider ahead of him and slingshot by.
There's your top 3. There's your new leader, Randy Goss.
Like I said earlier in the program here, that Randy Goss has been a very consistent, aggressive rider throughout this 1983 series.
Randy certainly won a tough heat race to make it to the final. We talked to him earlier.
Randy, you've qualified for the national final, but it was a close one. You and Hank Scott swapped leads several times. Obviously, there's some passing room out there.
Well, there's a lot of passing when you draft on the straightaway. And if you get a good draft, you can get by and get back on a notch going into the corner.
But how close was it?
Well, I beat him by about a bike, I think. By the time we got all the way down the straightaway, I got a real good draft on the right side. Beat him by about a bike, I'd say.
Is drafting the factor today, the key factor?
It's the key factor, yeah, that and a fast bike.
Now look at, here they are. 3 of them draft up, tucked down, and thundering down into turn number 1 once again.
And there goes Felice on the outside.
Ooh,
he moved into 2nd place.
I think they had a little tire bumping session going on.
Yes.
And we're talking about 130 miles an hour.
That's correct. Right now, Jimmy will be working on Randy Goss, and hopefully he's trying to get into the draft. There he goes. There is his light. See the light little rider, how he is. There he goes. He took the lead back again.
So you're saying he's roughly, what, about 50 pounds lighter than some of the other riders?
I'd say on the average a minimum of 40 pounds lighter, and that shows up just where we saw that taking place just now. He's so light, the power to weight ratio.
All right, now here comes Goss back again. Goss wants the lead, and he's got it. And again, as they power down into turn number 1, it's Randy Goss, Jimmy Felice, Ted Booty. And we'll be right back with more fast-action Grand National motorcycle racing on the SuperChargers. On the SuperChargers.
Okay, now Booty is putting on a heck of a charge. He's
Look at
on
him
the
side by
inside.
side.
Now Booty is taking 2nd position.
They were 3 deep as they moved into turn number 3.
And if you can imagine, at the end of the straightaway, that groove that they must stay on is no more than 4.5 feet wide.
All right, here they are again. Nose to tail. Felice takes a quick look behind him. Booty, not more than a bike length off the pace. Goss back into the number 3 spot now. Again, off the number 2 corner. A twist.
Now, Randy Goss did not win at Hawthorne Park in 1983, but he did go on to win the national championship, accumulating the most points in 1983. In St. Anne, Missouri, at Donelson Cycle, I had the opportunity to interview this 2-time Grand National Champion, winner of 16 national championship events. Let's go to the interview with Randy Goss.
My name is Randy Goss. Raced for Harley-Davidson, won a championship in 80 and 83. This motorcycle right here is one that I raced at Santa Fe Park. I raced it at Houston Astrodome. And it's a 2-stroke when they had the 2 strokes. To keep this bike running, we ended up putting a 175 crank pin and a YZ bottom end bearing in this Harley-Davidson to keep it running. I started out, the way I got into bike racing was a grade school teacher had us do a project, and I built my first mini bike out of a mini bike chassis, had go-kart wheels front and rear, and that's how I got started. And then I ended up with a Suzuki 50, and obviously the way everybody else did, work your way up to scrambles, motocross. Started racing professional when I was 16, motocrossing. I was a factory rider for Can-Am, development rider. Worked my way through the motocross ranks and ended up quitting motocross because I couldn't be successful enough after my dad had died. I started flat tracking because I didn't know what else to do. Started out as a novice and worked my way up to junior, and that's when Rich Gothrop started helping me with Jay Springsteen's old stuff as a junior. Worked my way to expert.
So you ran the Vista Sheen stuff when you were a junior?
Yeah, after Jay had gone to the factory. After Jay and Rich Gothrop took an interest in me and gave me the stuff to work with.
Well, let me ask you another thing before. You mentioned that you raced the Green Street Kawasaki. Were you racing back with Garth Brow and them guys?
When all of us, Friday nights at Auto City, Charlie would be there, Ted Booty, myself, Jay Springsteen, Kenny Springsteen, Garth Brow. Everybody started on baby Green Streaks back then. All the same guys that raced Nationals raced those 100. So that was our building grounds, you know.
So who was the fastest of you guys back then?
Jay was always the best. Yeah, Jay was always the best because he's just natural at it. He's a natural rider. And not only, that's what he loves to do. That's where he's at home the most. So, but the Auto City Speedway was as competitive as anything you ever want to be at with that group of people. So that's what raised everybody's level of competition. And then the ice also. You know, when Jay was young, he was in the north, I was 30 miles south, so they had the north-south challenge. You had guys with no screws in their tires, guys with sand on the track. So everybody raced competitive all those years when we were young.
So you raced motorcycles without screws too?
Yeah.
Did they have chains on the tires at all? Or
the north guys put sand on the track, the south guys didn't, and then they'd meet once a year for the big race. Then when screws became into it, everybody raced the same, you know, screws. Yeah.
So how competitive was it on the ice with you guys, with the screws in the tires?
Well, it started out mostly at Potter's used to race, but then as we got older and we all raced, Potter's was just a Saturday deal where everybody's getting in ready for Houston. You'd use the ice to get ready for the Houston Astrodome. So all us guys in Michigan would have thousands and thousands of laps before we ever got to Houston. It's kind of unfair, really, in a way. But you could do, if you compared it to NASCAR of today, in those days you could test all you wanted, all you needed was desire. You didn't really need any money, small amounts of money. You just needed desire. So all the guys from Michigan put hours and hours and hours in on the lake just to go to Houston and start out.
Okay, so you were a novice. What did you ride as a novice?
A novice, I think, let's see, I had a Yamaha because I kind of lost track. They jump around. I think what you had, 250 Botacos, then they jumped to 360, 2 strokes, and then you forget where they went from there. By that time I was a junior. But we still run these 2 strokes as experts. The short tracks were 2 strokes until that Rotax came out. So we run this Armaki motor, Harley motor, until the Rotax came out, and then everybody jumped on the four-stroke singles.
Okay, so you go junior and you go with Vista Sheen.
Yep.
You got Jay's old stuff.
Yep.
So how was it as a junior? How competitive was it, and how good was your stuff?
It was tough. I think I won that championship by, not default, but I scored more points than Garth Brow because I went to the West Coast and raced, and you got half points on the West Coast. That's the only way I could beat him. I just raced more races than him, and then I turned expert and rode for Bart for 2 years. I rode for Bart for 2 years.
Bart Markle?
Yeah.
And were you riding his bikes?
Yes, I rode for Bart.
And how was Bart to work with?
Bart,
what a mechanic was he?
Bart was an incredible guy to work for. most of the stories I got today, some of them I can't repeat, but were unbelievable. When he made the commitment to help me, he called Dick O'Brien up. I stood in his, and he told Dick O'Brien that we were going to kick his ass and all of his guys if he didn't. And when he got all done telling them how bad we were going to beat him, he asked him, and by the way, can you give us some parts? And that's how we got started. And Dick O'Brien gave us parts, and I rode for Bart 2 years. We didn't have much success. I was learning the ropes, and one day Bart was still working full-time at AC Sparkplug at the time. So he worked a full-time job and worked on the bikes.
He worked for AC Sparkplug in Flint, right?
Yeah. So Bart still was working full-time and working on the stuff. And then Bart finally got burned out on it. He got burned out on not doing good enough. He got burned out on working on them. And one day we were at Des Moines, Iowa, and he got mad at me and he said, dude, I'm done. He said, you take half the stuff and I'll take half the stuff. And that's when we split up. And it was a good point in time because he was burned out. He was tired of working a full-time job and racing every weekend. So from that point, I went, and my father-in-law, Larry Johnson, said, well, I'll help you build a
Were you
bike.
married by then? Did you marry Vicky by then?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, I'll help you build a bike. So that's the year we built a bike in my father-in-law's garage.
And that was in Ohio then?
Yep. And we bought, I bought my wife a $300 wedding ring, and I bought myself a $1,000 set of cylinder heads from CR Axtell, which is one of the best things I ever bought because I made the most money with them cylinder heads I ever did with anything. And we built that bike with the help of Stormy winter, and we had probably the fastest bike on the circuit that year. We won 3 nationals. I think we ended up 3rd in points as privateers. I grossed $60,000 in prize money in 1979 as a privateer. And when I got all done and paid my taxes, I had either $6,000 or $8,000 in the bank. We did all the work, drove it to the track, raced it. But that was good money in those days. And then at the end of '79, Dick O'Brien called me up and he said, hey, I want you to ride for me. He said, I want you to get a flight up here, I want to talk to you. Dick picked me up at the airport and he said, took me back and he said, all right, he said, here's the deal, I'll give you a full ride, mechanic. He said, I'll give you $25,000 salary. You get to keep all the prize money. But with that salary, you gotta transport the bikes, buy the fuel, and get your motels. So that's how it started, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think at Harley-Davidson, I think I would gross around $150,000 for
with prize money in it.
Prize money and winning the championship. That's running in the front.
And what year was that?
80. Yeah, started in 80. So
the first year with Harley, you won the championship?
I had number 13, which I was supposed to be number 17, but somebody else wanted, Rick Hockey wanted 17 because he was tired of 13, so they give me 13 by default, and I won the championship with 13 on my bike the first year, 1980. So, and then from then I rode for him for 4 years. Won it again in '83.
So how were, all right? So was Jay still racing, or was Jay having the medical problem?
Jay
right?
was sick a lot of the time. He was having medical trouble. And Scotty was on his way up. Scotty was coming up, learning the ropes. So I was the guy in between, the Mr. Consistent, the guy that was there that could score points every week. That's what I did. I outscored points. I scored more points than everybody.
So then when did it? So '83, you won number 1 again, and then what went on from there?
And then the Honda guys had come in. Remember?
Oh, with the new 750.
Honda guys had come in, and they'd gotten really, really competitive.
Right.
Ricky and Bubba were over there.
Right.
And we were kind of, there was no restrictors at that point, so the 4 valves were hard to beat. So '84. 84 was my best year as far as getting the most out of myself. I think.
So you think Honda in there forced you to even ride?
Forced us to raise the bar.
Right,
and
right.
Brent and I.
So you were down in horsepower, you had to make up in talent.
We had power too.
Uh-huh.
We had power too, but we raised the bar. So every week, it raised the bar so high that every week the 750 was close to blowing up. You had to be that close to the ragged edge. You couldn't.
So how often did you rebuild these engines? Every race?
Every week they had to look at them. By that point, you had to look at everything every week.
Right.
I think we won.
And who was your mechanic at that time from Harley?
Brent Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we won 4 races that year, and we were leading the points when I broke my leg at San Jose. We were beating Hondas that year. Yeah. So I ended up 3rd that year without racing the last 2 races. But that was our best year as a team.
Okay,
So
now, in your career, what do you think was your favorite race of all the races that you really sticks in your mind?
I mean, once I got my road tax working, the short tracking was fun. Went in Houston, I won here in St. Louis. I won the TT at Santa Fe on that road tax. The night Graham and I fell down leading. I don't know if you remember that one.
What happened now?
Ricky and I fell down leading the TT, and we both got up. Had to come from the back. Won Santa Fe that night, but Ascot Park, I mean, any of the races you win. Going to Ascot when things were right and you could win. I won that race, I think, 5 times. The National.
The half-mile national.
Yeah.
Did they ever run a TT national there? Or did you ever run that 100
I
mile?
run the 750 there, but I never won that race.
Right.
But it was an excellent race. So I mean.
So did you like the Rotex Harleys? Those 600s, were those good bikes to ride?
Yeah. I won a Peoria TT on a 750 Harley, which was like I just got through telling Dick Mann, I said I wouldn't go over that jump on a 750 Harley today if you give me $10 million. Okay, that's how hard it was to race. You know, a 320-pound motorcycle, and you're doing 80 miles an hour when you hit the jump. So,
no, I let off when I'm going up the jumps.
Yeah. So, you know, Peoria, obviously my first win at Middletown, New York. My wife and I drove up there and got in there at 3 or 4 in the morning, slept in the van. You know, we built the bike in my father-in-law's garage and just won the first national, which was the first time when you say, you know, I can do this. So, learned a lot of stuff, met a lot of cool people.
So did you ever go road racing with Harley?
My road racing career was so short. I borrowed a 250 2-stroke Harley from Rich Gothrow. I was still a junior in dirt track. Went to Daytona, didn't know anything about it. It took me the whole first day to get through tech inspection because I didn't know all that stuff had to be wired and all that. So lap 2, I high-sided in the horseshoe and broke my wrist. So that was the end of that. And then by that point, I forget what year it was, you didn't have to road race anymore to score points when they changed all that, so you just needed to work on your dirt track stuff. Yeah.
All right, so when did you finally throw it in and get in? Did the car take you away, or how did it?
84, after the end of 84, I was upset with a lot of things at Harley, and I quit, and I went to ride for Jerry Griffith. So my leg when I broke my leg at San Jose, I had a plate in my left leg so I just gotten healed up, so I'm riding for Jerry. I fell down at the Ascot TT in '85 at the beginning of the year, and it flexed my leg so far it re-broke the bone, but they still had the plate on it. So I raced the rest of the season with it being broken. So we didn't run good at all that season. I think I won a couple races, but then after '85, Jerry was going broke, trying to help me. He was helping Doug Chandler and I, but he was basically, we didn't have enough money coming in. Jerry was spending his own money. So '86, I went back as a privateer, and Brent Thompson built the bikes out of his garage. Won one more race at Ascot. In '86, at the end of '86, I'm done. So that's how I ended up getting into the car racing, because it was right there close to Brighton. Started out road racing cars, working on them. worked on road race cars. Went to Pratt & Miller, worked on GTP cars. Ended up going to Roush, working on GTS cars, Trans Am cars, and then we started the truck series, started the truck program at Roush, which eventually led me to North Carolina with Biffle. We won the truck championship, nationwide championship, won the Firecracker 400 and Cup, and at 8 months into there, Biffle and Jack fired me, and I started working for a truck team, a small truck team, and we run the Chevy. You might remember the Chevy when the Cup guys would come and drive Chevy truck, Bobby Labonte, Tony Stewart, those guys. So we'd run 10 races a year, and from that point, I started to work my career down to not having to work so many hours. And then last real success, I worked for Kyle Larson in the K&N series. He won the series that year, 14 race series. And then my wife and I moved to Florida, and we both are school bus drivers in Florida.
All right, you got a good Neal Keen story?
I didn't know Neal very well. I knew Neal through my friend Charlie Chappell, which I learned how to, how to make money racing motorcycles. This is the lesson you learn from them two guys. How do you survive and how do you make money racing motorcycles from Charlie to Neal. So I didn't know Neal very well personally, but I knew him through Charlie.
Thank you, Randy. What a great story. What a great racer. As we see some action from the Hawthorne Mile, Randy Goss winning the championship in 1983. I also had the opportunity to interview his tuner at Harley-Davidson from 1980 to 1984, Brent Thompson. And he's going to give us some more great insight of building national championship Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
Hello, Brent Thompson here. Well, I'm going to recap a little bit about what we did with Randy Knight Harley-Davidson. I actually came from the Norton Triumph BSA folks and heard that there was a job at Harley, got an offer to move there, and I moved there in July of 1976. And I was kind of a road racing guy at that time, and I really worked on the road racers, the 250 road racers, worked motocross, and eventually Dick O'Brien teamed Randy and I up to work together on the dirt track team. And this was after Randy's 1979 season. He had a really good year that year, so Dick brought him on board, and what was customary of Dick O'Brien is he would kind of match his riders with a mechanic that was available at that time, and I happened to be available. Asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, yep. Randy came in, we got together. And Randy was just awesome, but what Randy did is he wanted to know about his bikes. He wanted to know what was inside them. And I think what really helped Randy and I work well together is that it was a partnership. We talked a lot about the performance and what we would have to do to make the bike successful. And Randy was always involved mechanically in the bike, so we worked on the frames, the chassis. He was very particular about his cam timing, the power band, the carburation, exhaust system. So back then, we would have the whole shop behind us. Randy and I would coordinate, get everything ready. We'd do all the work, dyno tune, and get all the equipment ready. And then with the help of the rest of the shop, and then I was responsible for getting it all in one piece ready for the racetrack. And then of course when the races came on that particular day, they'd usually fly us out to the races, and we'd meet with our rider and race with the weekend, and then we would fly back home. So that's kind of how we worked together. And I guess the success that we had would be the hard work. We just never gave up. We were testing all the time. And it was tough because we were in a union shop. We actually had more competition within the Harley-Davidson racing team than we had on the outside, actually. So we worked in that atmosphere, and I was a union mechanic, so we could only work so many hours a day, and many times it required more, so we'd actually go home in my garage and do a little work here and there. And when we came out on our extended stays in the West Coast or East Coast, then we get to do some testing that we wouldn't normally do inside the plant, because everything inside the plant was extremely controlled. So we had a great run. We worked very well together. We had a couple years in there where we didn't have the parts and a few things we needed to get the job done. But for the most part, I think we were always in the top 3. And toward the end, when a lot of the politics and changing of management at Harley made the racing team kind of diminish and go away, Randy went with another team for a while. I actually was lowest in seniority in the department, although I'd been there for 9 to 10 years, another union issue. And I went into the service division at that time, and I was still helping Randy occasionally on the side. And I know that I think we won Ascot for the last time together on his own Harley-Davidson after he'd been with the Honda team for a while. So that was probably the end of us actually racing together. But it was a great career.
Okay, one inside thing. Dyno tuning, you mentioned, how much time did you guys have to dyno the engines, rebuild the engines? Give me a little bit on that. Were engines rebuilt after every race? Were they torn down after a race? Give me a little bit of that.
So I was actually responsible for a lot of the dyno work and getting the engines ready for the race. We would have a dyno, I guess you'd call it a developmental base that we'd put our engine in and take the transmission, everything out, and I actually have an engine dyno downstairs that we'd have to take it all downstairs. And we had a combination that Dick O'Brien would want us to run. We had a developmental person in the factory that had a combination we wanted to run, and then Randy and I had what worked best around the racetrack. So we were always in a little bit of a conflict on what would really work best. And that's when we would actually go out and test on the outside. He would ride one bike, I would ride the other. It would be geared the same, and we'd do a roll-on and see which combination would pull actually on the road. And usually we'd go to Terry Sage's place in Stockton, California, where we go way back out in the fields, and we'd run along those roads and do our actual road testing after we found out which combinations would work. So usually the week was filled with getting ready for the race. We worked 8 hours a day. We do what was needed. Come Friday or Thursday, the bikes had to be ready. The guys would come in with their vans. We'd pick the bikes up, and off we go. Usually the dyno combinations were kind of done in the off season. We'd kind of get our combinations together and know kind of what worked. We'd develop, and I would go down there for weeks on end and dyno tune and come up with certain combinations, and then we would make the parts that were needed for the next year. And I guess long hours, mostly outside the plant when we were on our own, but a lot of the work, as I said, was controlled inside. If we were getting ready for a big race, Dick O'Brien would say, okay, well, you guys can work an extra hour for 3 weeks. So we would get to work a little bit overtime because it was all budgetary, and it was all controlled by management and how much we could work.
Thank you, Brent, and thank you, Randy. And we have to thank the Donelsons for having Neal Keen birthday every year in January. DonelsonCycles.com, DonelsonCycles.com. They're on St. Charles Rock Road, 314-427-1204. Give them a call. The best connection to get hold of Randy Goss is to go through D's Racing Leathers. That's D'sRacingLeathers.com. D'sRacingLeathers.com. I have to thank my late, great friend, Jan Gabriel, for giving me permission to use footage from the SuperChargers, Jan Gabriel, the announcer at Santa Fe Speedway. And don't forget, TeamChicago.tv, WalkWithDan.com. Email me at teamdan45@gmail.com.